Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to join in and get settled. And while we do that, if you'd like to introduce yourself, there's a control panel, should be on your right-hand side of your screen. And there's a chat box that you can use to say hello, tell us where you're tuning in from, what organization you're representing today. And if you're a member, say hello. Shout out to our members joining in today. Hello, if you're just tuning in, we're just saying our hellos using the chat box. So we're going to give everyone a few minutes to settle in. And we see some people tuning in from Birmingham, Alabama. Hello, welcome. And someone joining in from Topeka, Kansas. Hi, welcome. We're going to give everyone a few more minutes. We see a hello from someone in New City, New York. And hello to Monica from our pet project in Houston. Hello. Glad to have you here today. And I see someone from New City, New York. Hello. If you're a member, let us know. We'd love to say hello. We'll just give one more minute for people to get logged in here. All right. I just want to say hello to everyone. Thank you guys for joining us. You have the opportunity to use this chat here at any time. So if you're just tuning in while we're getting started here, please introduce yourself and say hello. We have Jeanette. She's calling in from Eastern Madera County, SPCA in Oakhurst, California. Hello, welcome. And we've got a Kim from Columbus, Ohio. Hi, Kim. Welcome for joining us, or thank you, rather. So I'm going to kick us off here by saying hello. My name's Mariah, and I'm going to be your MC today for the webinar. I manage the marketing communications here at Shelters United. And today we're presenting Saving Money on Parasiticides, a crash course for animal nonprofits, presented by Shelters United in collaboration with our partners at Virbac. So just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions throughout the webinar today, just type them into that question box on your GoToWebinar control panel. And we'll also hopefully have time for questions throughout and at the end of the webinar. But if your question doesn't get answered, don't worry. We'll share those with the speakers and we'll get back to you after the webinar. And then also just a note, we will be recording today's webinar. So we'll be sending out a link where you can replay the webinar on Friday. So look for that. And I think we're going to go ahead and get started. So let's begin the webinar by reviewing today's agenda. right, we'll be kicking off today's discussion with a short welcome and introduction from Shelters United. Then we'll turn it over to Dr. Whetstone to take a closer look at the key trends and challenges facing parasite prevention and control. Finally, Tabitha will guide us through 3 money-saving strategies we're using to help members employ quality, affordable parasite protection. All right, let's get started. I'm proud to introduce you to Tabitha, our enrollment specialist for Shelters United. Tabitha Fallon started in animal welfare 10 years ago while working for her local veterinarian and eventually transitioned into selling veterinary supplies. Years later, she joined the INPEX and Shelters United team, working with shelters and rescues, helping them to achieve their mission of saving more pets. Outside of work, Tabitha lives in Alabama, raising 2 boys and a whole lot of backyard chickens. Welcome, Tabitha.
Hi, thank you, Mariah. Hi, I'm Tabitha, and I'm excited to talk to y'all today. Shelters United is the only group purchasing organization for nonprofit animal welfare organizations like you. You can think of us as a buying group specific to animal welfare organizations. We are passionate about helping you keep as much of your hard-earned fundraising dollars as possible to help save more lives. We work with manufacturers to obtain discounts on thousands of products you already use and purchase every day. With these discounts, our members saved $1.4 million in 2020. That's an average of $1,857 per organization. Just imagine what you could do with those savings. Angela Stell at NM Dog is using her savings to hire an employee. And also with the savings from Shelters United, Dr. Rowe was able to spay and neuter 800 plus feral cats in 2020. Some of our manufacturer partners include MWI Animal Health, our group's distributor partner, INPEX, who has brought you programs over the last 35 years like Rally to Rescue, Pet Telethons, Homeless Homer, and more, Securo Surgical Supplies, Provecta, an affordable option for flea and tick preventatives, Rescue Disinfectants, a powerful one-step cleaning and disinfecting product, AWA, the leading organization for animal welfare organizations like you to find continuing education and networking opportunities, Blue Natural Veterinary Diets, MWI Office Supply for office supplies and break room needs, and Virbac, a wide range of products like medicated shampoos, air cleansers, and affordable options for flea, tick, and heartworm medications.
Great, thank you for that introduction, Tabitha. Now we're going to be kicking it off to Dr. Whetstone from Virbac. Dr. Whetstone is a 1993 graduate of Kansas State University's College of Veterinary Medicine. After completing a small animal internship at the University of Georgia's School of Veterinary Medicine, he joined a mixed animal practice in South Central Iowa. He and his wife, Kate, also a doctor of veterinary medicine, returned to their home state of Kansas after purchasing a small animal practice in Wichita. He also served on the board of directors of the Kansas Humane Society in Wichita, Kansas, and provided relief services in the veterinary clinic. Dr. Whetstone has been in small animal practice for over 22 years before joining Virbac. Dr. Whetstone and his family help manage the family commercial cow operation, where his wife was raised in the southern Flint Hills. He has 2 teenage children and enjoys coaching and mentoring young people through many volunteer activities. Welcome, Dr. Whetstone.
All right, thank you, Mariah. Appreciate that very nice introduction. I just found out yesterday that Tabitha and I have a couple things in common. I have a boy as well. I don't know how you do with 2. One's enough, and I have chickens. So how about that? We're cattle ranchers, but I do have some chickens. All right. Well, I just want to say thank you to Shelters United for allowing Virbac to come in and help you and help all of your members, and just welcome to all of the attendees today. So let's get started. We're going to talk about you and parasiticides. Next slide, please. A little bit about Virbac. Virbac is a company that not everybody knows about. It is one of the smaller animal health companies. Mary Beth, you can advance that to the next slide. Thank you. All right. Founded by Dr. Dick 53 years ago, a French veterinarian. So Virbac is a worldwide company still today, not only involved in small animal medical solutions, but also food, animal, equine, and aquatic medicine as well. So very much a very diverse company. One of the very unique things about Virbac, though, one is that it's still a privately held company. Dr. Dick, although he's no longer alive, his family is still very much involved in the company. And then the other very unique thing is that we are an animal health company only. We do not have a human pharma, big brother to us, which many other, if not all other, animal health companies do. So that really makes us unique, and certainly our mission, our passion is dedicated to animal health. Next slide. Our partnership with Shelters United certainly allowed me to learn a lot more about this organization, and looking at your mission certainly starts with, the financial challenges that any shelter faces and trying to save money and negotiate discounts. But it's really that third point that caught my attention, and that's that mission base. Next slide. And it's really about advancing animal welfare. And I think that's where, when you look at the partnership of Shelters United and Virbac, and what I hope we can bring to you, is really a common mission, all about animal welfare and really trying to make a difference in the lives of those dogs and cats. Next slide. One of the ways that we really support animal welfare and dogs and cats is through our Every Pet project. And that is where we donate, Virbac donates to animal charities. So these have to be 501c3. Every month we donate $2,500 to charities. And this is all done just through a nomination process. It's not a contest of who can get the most votes. One nomination will enter any charity into that drawing. Certainly the more nominations that are made, the greater your chances of winning, just because you've got more tickets in the bucket. But one nomination will help with that. And what's really interesting, note that third bullet point, is that there are 7 winners, past winners of our monthly drawing that are Shelters United members. So if you'd like more information about that, on our website, which we'll share those resources with you. But we have really robust digital assets. It's really a turnkey promotion for you, giving you social media assets and many others to help you promote that and try to generate some additional funds. So we would love for any of you to win those dollars. Next slide. So why didn't I name today's presentation Heartworm Prevention in You? Why did I name it Parasiticides in You? Well, for several reasons. And the one is that there's many common parasites that affect our dogs and cats, and they're both internal and external. It's not all just about heartworms. Heartworms certainly important, but there's many other important parasites that we need to pay attention to, and that really impacts when we're choosing parasiticides and how we're going to control and prevent and treat those. It really does impact that. Another reason that we want to pay attention to all parasites is that they cause disease, and just by the nature, the definition of a parasite is that they cause disease. They have a negative impact on dogs and cats, and not only their health but their well-being as well. And then we also know that parasites are zoonotic. Not all of them, but some of the parasites that affect our dogs and cats are zoonotic, meaning they pose a real and significant health risk to humans. And that's important when we think about the shelter environment, where we have dogs and cats coming into the shelter environment who may not have had any parasiticides given to them, applied to them in the past, and so their parasite burdens. And we'll take a look at some numbers to show you that. So definitely from a human health risk, the workers inside of a shelter certainly are at increased risk. And many parasites have a significant impact on the human-animal bond. Think about fleas or tapeworms and the impact, although they may not pose a significant health risk, in many cases, especially to dogs, they certainly can have a significant impact on the human-animal bond. Next slide. One of the things I want to challenge you in your language, and look, when we talk about parasiticide control or parasite control and parasiticides at Virbac, we often talk about heartworm preventatives. And I know that's the common language, not only in the shelter environment, but in veterinary medicine inside of veterinary clinics. Heartworm prevention is often the term we use, but I would challenge you to start thinking about and speaking about broad spectrum parasite control, or another term you can use is comprehensive parasite control. What that does for you, one, within your organization, imparts value and the importance of all of the parasites that we're controlling, and that we're not just becoming singularly focused on heartworms, but it also imparts value to your customer, to your adopters, about what you have applied to, given to the dog, and what you're recommending that they continue to use even after adoption. Next slide. I wanted to give you some resources, and many of you are probably familiar with at least some of these resources, maybe all of them, but I want to make sure that you all are aware of the resources available to you. Certainly, the Association of Shelter Veterinarians has a very robust website with many resources, including guidelines for parasite control. The next resource that, and we'll drill down a little bit deeper into this one, particularly today, is the Companion Animal Parasite Council, which includes some prevalence maps around all of the parasites and disease risk across the country, and also some guidelines about parasite control. The American Heartworm Society, specifically around heartworm disease prevention and treatment. The Centers for Disease Control, because many of the parasites are zoonotic and pose a human risk, the CDC offers some really great resources when it comes to preventing parasites to decrease the risk posed to humans. And then universities across the country now, veterinary colleges. Now, I have Kansas State up here, and that's because I'm a Kansas State grad, but many of the veterinary colleges now have really strong, robust shelter medicine programs. So within your region, I think reaching out to those universities and seeking out their help can be very valuable as well. And then lastly, I would hope you would certainly see, now that Virbac has partnered with Shelters United, I would hope that you would see us as a valuable resource as well. Today, again, my hope is that you'll leave here today saying that was helpful, that was educational. I learned something today that I can apply in my own shelter. And going forward, we have many resources across the country. I'm one of 10 technical service veterinarians. So within your region, and I'm happy to help you anytime. I'll share my cell number and email with you later, but don't ever hesitate to reach out to the field technical veterinary staff here at Virbac to help guide you around your parasite control. Next slide. Again, going back to the importance of intestinal parasites and thinking about broad spectrum parasite control, comprehensive parasite control. And why is that so important? Well, one of the reasons is, besides the impact that hookworms, roundworms, whipworms, tapeworms have on our dogs and cats, again, they pose a significant health risk to people. And this happens in the United States. We're not talking about a third world country. We're not talking about someplace outside of the United States. These significant health issues happen right here in the United States. And again, those working in the shelter environment certainly would be at an increased risk because of the population that's coming into that shelter. And so it's important that we talk about this and that we all understand the importance of preventing this. This is the Centers for Disease Control pamphlet, PDF file, that's available to help educate the pet owning public about the necessity, the importance of regular parasite control. Next slide. And again, just we're not going to get down into the details of the transmission of some of these intestinal parasites, but again, just to remind you how simple this can be when we look at hookworms, our dogs and cats that have adult hookworm infections are passing those eggs into the environment. If we don't practice good sanitary control, which often isn't done in the home, in the yards, certainly something we need to pay close attention to in the shelter environment is the removal of feces. That can just be a really strong preventative program in and of itself. But we know that those eggs then go on to develop into larvae that then when humans are exposed to those larvae, when they have skin exposure to those larvae, largely around the hands and the feet, those larvae will penetrate through the skin and now can become infective in the person and really, again, cause some various significant health issues in people. Next slide. So let's talk about the prevalence of intestinal parasites across the country. So I'll just show you 3 different resources, a couple studies that demonstrate how common these are. Sometimes I think we take this for granted. You think about some of the parasites that are common in dogs. Hookworms. We cannot see adult hookworms in dogs. You and I can't see them. We can't diagnose them without looking under the microscope. Whipworms, same way. Roundworms, yes, we can see those, but those are largely a puppyhood issue, largely. Tapeworms, yes, we can see those. So again, it's not always readily apparent to any of us how common these are just by visually inspecting our dogs. This was a study done by Dr. Little at Oklahoma State, sponsored by Elanco, looking at dog parks across the country and just simply surveying these dogs in 2 ways. 1, looking at their stool samples to see what parasites they did have, and 2, finding out from the owners if they were on any parasite control. So understand that a dog park represents owned dogs, but they don't necessarily all have the same health care or veterinary care. They're not all necessarily going to the veterinary clinic. They're all not necessarily on regular monthly broad spectrum preventative. So this really gives us a good cross section of our dog population. You can see that this study was done across the United States. So regardless of where you're attending from, you could find a dog park in this study near you that would really represent the kind of the parasites that are an issue in your region. I'll just point out, because we're going to drill down a little bit further using a couple other resources, I'll just point out that in the southeast region of this particular study, Oklahoma City and Tulsa were 2 metropolitan areas where dog parks were surveyed. So we're just going to use that as an example. Next slide shows you in this particular study what the results were. So you can see that over 20%, almost 21% of the dogs across the country had at least 1 parasite. So that's a significant number. And again, many of these dogs, these are all owned dogs, and many of these dogs are visiting the veterinary clinic regularly. You can also see, because sometimes people will say, well, maybe they surveyed dog parks that were in not a higher socioeconomic part of town. No, these dog parks represented all socioeconomic areas of these metropolitan areas, and 85% of the parks had at least 1 dog with that was positive for parasites. So it's a problem across the country, across all metros, and over 20% of the dogs. And then in the bottom 3 graphs, you can see how it divides out between hookworms, whipworms, and giardia. Giardia is really largely a problem across the country. Whipworms tends to be more the southeast, as does hookworms. But again, it doesn't matter what region you're in. None of them are immune to these parasites. Next slide. We'll look at a study now that was done by Dr. Adolph and team, basically trying to determine how good our diagnostics were, meaning, when we do fecal exams, how well can we figure out what the dog has for parasites. Now, these were dogs in 2 shelters in Northeast Oklahoma. So again, similar to that Oklahoma City, Tulsa dog park study that we just looked at. And these were dogs in shelters, and they had already been identified for humane euthanasia for other reasons. And so they weren't euthanized for the purposes of this study. They had already been identified for humane euthanasia and then were allowed to survey the intestinal parasite load. What did they find? Here are the results. So again, you can see that in these shelter dogs, so again, these aren't necessarily owned dogs. They might have been surrender dogs, but they also may not have been dogs that were necessarily being cared for. you can see that the parasite load is quite significant, almost 50% for hookworms, 40% for whipworms. You can see Toxicara roundworms is quite low. Again, puppies would not represent the largest part of the population coming into the shelter, so that's not surprising. But also tapeworms, extremely common as well. So again, just helps demonstrate how common the intestinal parasite loads are, even though we may not be able to see them, and when our diagnostic test can even be negative. Next slide. One of the resources that I've already mentioned is CAPC, the Companion Animal Parasite Council, and they have a really powerful website, not only again from just getting education about particular parasites and the diseases that they cause, but also prevention guidelines. They can also help you just determine what parasites are common in my area. Heartworms, we can look at heartworms, we can look at the intestinal parasites, we can also look at the vector-borne diseases like ehrlichiosis as an example that is transmitted by ticks. I would highly encourage you to use these maps, and if you need help analyzing this data, again, I think this is where the field technical service veterinarians at Virbac can help you drill down into this data and really make some educated decisions about the spectrum of activity you need in your parasite control for your particular shelter. This map is just an example. Again, you can look at the top ribbon menu. We're looking at hookworms in dogs. And you can also see that I've chosen the year 2021. These maps go all the way back to 2012 when CAPC started collecting this data. So you can actually look at trends as well, which I think is extremely helpful in a couple areas. One is heartworm disease, because heartworm disease prevalence is changing. We'll look at that more specifically in a moment. And also, I think looking at tick-borne disease, these maps can be extremely helpful. I think we get lured into believing that because of some of our newer compounds, that tick-borne disease would be reduced, but when you look at these prevalence maps, it's clear that that's not happening. So tick-borne disease is still a very significant issue, and it's actually spreading as well, both ehrlichiosis and anaplasmosis. More to come on that. So this is looking at hookworms across the United States. And then we can drill down further and look at a particular state. So if you happen to reside in Oklahoma, now you can look at Oklahoma. And now it's divided by counties. The gray counties means there's no data reported. That's an important thing to remember, is that what CAPC is showing you is just the dogs tested and the test results that are reported. So some veterinarians may test but not report results, and some veterinarians don't test and don't report results. So the gray counties are where there's no results being reported. What that means then is these numbers would be an underestimate. Again, these numbers are going to be less than what I just showed you on the shelter study, but also the dog park study. And that's because it's the dogs going into veterinary clinics, getting tested, and then getting reported. Again, it's going to show you trends, and it's going to show you what parasites are present in your region. So again, we're looking at the state of Oklahoma. Now we can drill down further and look at the county of Tulsa, which is where the metro area, the city of Tulsa is. So next slide, Mary Beth. Great. Now you can see that the county of Tulsa is white, and so that's how specific you can really drill down. One note I would just tell you is that when you're looking at these maps, what if you have a county that's gray? What if your shelter resides in a county that's gray? You have no results. Look at the counties around it. And even in the case of this Tulsa County, if I was analyzing this data for a shelter in Tulsa, I would also look at the surrounding counties as well to see if the data stays consistent, see if anything changes, and that may help guide us as well. All right, so really powerful resource, and I know we're going to share that website with you so that you can use that. Again, I think Virbac can really help you analyze that data as well to help guide your decision-making process. All right, next slide. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about heartworms and heartworm disease. In 2018, the AVMA did a survey and published their pet ownership and demographic source book. And it's estimated that in 2018, there were 77 million dogs across the United States. So if you think about, and we would certainly recommend, and when you talk to, when you look at the resources like CAPC, and when you look at resources like the American Heartworm Society, talking about heartworm prevention in the case of the American Heartworm Society, but also just, again, going back to comprehensive or broad spectrum parasite control, all of those experts recommend monthly prevention all year round. So if we did that for 77 million dogs, there would be 924 million doses of heartworm or broad spectrum parasite control given annually. Do you think that is the number that we give? And the answer is no, we don't. So what if we gave a third? What if we just gave a third of those doses? How many would that be? Well, that would be 308 million heartworm doses. Is that the amount that we are able to give in the United States that people are giving to their dogs? And the answer to that is no. So what is that number? How many doses annually are people giving to their pet dogs? And the answer is, it's even just a little over a third of that 308, 137 million doses. And that number is decreasing. It's actually down from 2017 by 3.5%. So that's presenting some additional challenges and obviously leaving dogs at risk. Next slide. So what are the trends in heartworm infection? We now know that heartworm disease is in all 50 states. There were states before, areas of the country, especially when we kind of get to the Rocky Mountains and west, where folks for a long time have said we don't have heartworms, and you can't say that anymore. Heartworm disease exists in all 50 states. And just in 2018, annually, over 1 million dogs infected with heartworm disease or diagnosed with heartworm disease. I think another thing, again, going back to broad spectrum parasite control, think about that. We don't just give heartworm prevention. When we give a heartworm preventative, we're giving broad spectrum, some broader than others, parasite control. So when we know that doses are going down and the incidence of heartworm disease is going up, we also know that dogs are not getting the intestinal parasite control as well. So they're not being, whipworms, hookworms, roundworms are not being controlled also. All right, so what about shelters? So this is from a combined survey, a cooperative survey between the American Heartworm Society and the Association of Shelter Veterinarians. And they wanted to know, or simply ask the question to the shelters, what percentage of dogs admitted to the shelter, to your shelter last year, were heartworm positive? So what were the results? In 63% of the shelters, 5% or less of the dogs were heartworm positive. 21%, 5 to 10% of the dogs were positive. 11 to 25% of the dogs positive in 9% of the shelters, and over 25%, over a fourth of the dogs, heartworm positive in 7% of the shelters. So certainly a significant problem with dogs coming into the shelters. Even that 5% certainly presents a challenge to any shelter. Next slide. So what are the challenges in compliance? And this is results of the same survey or this survey done by Dr. Pryor, why many dog owners aren't using heartworm preventatives. Only 25% of US dogs receive heartworm prevention regularly, right? So some of them are getting it part of the time, but they're not getting it regularly. They're certainly not getting it 12 months out of the year. And next click, 27% of dog owners believed they were giving heartworm preventative when in fact they were just administering a flea and tick protection. And that's been complicated by the new oral flea and tick products, because again, owners often think that they're giving a heartworm preventative. This was demonstrated in Dr. Little's study, the dog park study that we looked at just a few minutes ago. One of the questions they asked them after collecting the stool sample was, what were they giving? Well, they asked them, were they giving heartworm prevention? That was a yes or no question. And then they asked them what product they were using. And many times As an example, now this isn't the answer they gave all the time, but in many of the cases where they said yes, they were giving a heartworm preventative, then what were they giving? One of the products that was often referenced was Frontline Plus. As an example, we know Frontline Plus does not do anything for intestinal or heartworm disease prevention. So there's a lot of confusion with owners as well, and these are some of the challenges that we face. Next slide. And so these three barriers were identified. These are the three biggest barriers to heartworm compliance. Certainly perception of risk. You know, again, many areas of the country, people still believe that the risk is low. Even though heartworm disease is spreading, that word is not getting out. And it's not easy for people to see heartworm disease, right? In fact, they don't know it until their dog is sick from heartworm disease. They can't see the heartworm. They can't see that happening in the dog. And then there's concern about the side effects of the heartworm preventatives. Ease of use, it does require a prescription, and so that certainly can be a barrier for many people. And then cost, by far, is the biggest barrier to non-compliance. And so if we can help reduce that cost, we ought to see compliance increase as well. Next slide. So we've talked a lot about the internal parasites, heartworms and intestinal parasites. And really, in the interest of time, we knew we couldn't cover it all. So I don't want to forget about the external parasites. And I think I'll let the folks from Shelters United make any announcements that might be forthcoming, but more to come on that, but certainly not to diminish the importance of external parasites. The most important ones being ticks, fleas, and even ear mites, especially in cats. Fleas don't pose a huge risk to dogs, pose a significant risk to cats, more significant risk when it comes to a disease state. And we also know that there's some zoonotic disease, cat scratch fever as an example, that fleas play a role in as well. So significant issues there. And then ticks certainly pose a huge disease risk, not only for our dogs, but also for people as well. And this is just a map from the pet parasite forecast showing the forecast for ehrlichiosis. You can see that no state is immune from ehrlichiosis, and it's certainly increasing in prevalence. So more to come on external parasites. I just didn't want you to think I was totally forgetting about that. So how do you choose a parasiticide? And again, when we think about broad spectrum parasiticides, and again, more to come on helping you with the external parasites, the ticks, the fleas, but thinking about the heartworm and broad spectrum intestinal parasite control, how would we choose a parasiticide? Well, I think certainly for any shelter, price or cost is going to be number one. It has to fit into the budget, and I'm sure any shelter is certainly challenged from a budgetary standpoint. So cost is going to be a significant decision maker, a significant piece of information when it comes to making that decision. But I think also you should consider value. And there's a difference between value and cost, right? So cost or price is the money. That's the amount we write the check for, or the amount we debit the account for to pay for a particular product. But value is about what does that bring to you? What does that bring to the dog? What about its spectrum of activity? Is it broad spectrum? Is it comprehensive enough? Next click, please. Awesome, yeah. So is it, value would be about spectrum. So if we have two products that are equally priced and one is broader spectrum than the other, that one that's broader spectrum brings you greater value. And is it regionally appropriate? Are we covering the parasites? Again, going back to CAPC maps, let's determine what would be regionally appropriate for your shelter. And is this parasiticide bringing to you what you need for your dogs and cats? And then lastly, when it comes to value support of the manufacturer, just examples of how manufacturers can support you. I hope today is one example of how Virbac can support you from an educational standpoint. Again, I've offered to you, and I hope you'll take advantage of our ability to help you with understanding what parasites are prevalent in your region as an example, and even doing problem solving inside your shelter if that can be helpful as well. When it comes to guarantee of the products, Virbac products are 100% guaranteed. There's a heartworm guarantee with Virbac products. Now, some other manufacturers may have that as well, but again, we do, and we stand behind that as well. I think certainly the Every Pet Project would be another example of how Virbac supports you as well, and just brings greater value to Shelters United and its members. And then lastly, as far as choosing a parasiticide, is I believe cost and value to the adopter. So I know inside your shelter, we're not just talking about a concrete block building or a steel building. That's not the shelter. The shelter is the people inside that, and it's from the board of directors to the manager to all of the people working inside that shelter. They're people too, and I know most people working in shelters don't work there because of the money or the the wages or the salary. They're part of that mission as well, and it's part of their personal mission to be involved in animal welfare and make a difference. And so I know they care about those dogs and those cats well beyond their stay in the shelter. They care about, you all care about them once they leave your shelter, and you want to know that your adopter has a product that provides value at a cost that they can afford. And I think that should play an important role in your decision-making process as well. All right, next slide. So how can Virbac partner with you and help? Again, we believe it's our responsibility to help that, to ensure that more dogs are protected from heartworm disease, and also, control intestinal parasites, prevent intestinal parasites, protect that human-animal bond, protect the health of not only those of you who work inside the shelters, but also your adopters as well. And I think lastly, I'm going to just share with you, next slide, yeah, my email address and my cell number. Again, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can also get you in contact with your field technical service veterinarian who might be closer to you than I am if a actual site visit might be helpful. But again, don't hesitate to reach out to me. So with that, Mariah, I just want to say thank you, and I will turn it back over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Whetstone. Really, really great information there and some really powerful resources that you shared. So with that, we're going to go ahead and take time for some questions. It looks like we've got time for just one question. So please, everybody, feel free to type that question that you have into the chat box. We'll get back to you with all those questions. But for now, Dr. Whetstone, one of our attendees has some concerns about using the correct product for the correct problem with newly intake dogs and puppies. Do you have any advice for them?
Well, sure. So it really kind of goes back to what I think we've already talked about. And I'll just say, let's just start from a business standpoint, because I know that, again, we've talked about, how do you choose a parasiticide? And I think cost and price certainly plays a huge role in that. I know that from that there's budgetary challenges for any shelter. So so with that, having owned a veterinary clinic, understanding that business side of things, having worked in and served on the board of a shelter, we know there's some principles about business that really help reduce costs. And one of those is narrowing your choices, or not narrowing your choices, narrowing your inventory, controlling your inventory. Inventory can be a huge drain on resources. So what that means is make the decision up front. I would say almost 100% of the time, you should be able to administer the same parasiticide or combination of parasiticides, if we're talking about internal and external parasites, on every dog at intake. And you determine that by, again, going back to what I talked to you today about using these resources of CAPC, looking at the dog park study, looking at what's present in your region, and saying, okay, these are the parasites that are important to us. This is what we need to control. Now let's go choose the parasiticide based on that. And then obviously we're going to consider cost, and we're going to consider value as well. So we make that decision up front, then we stick to that. That's our parasiticide. The decision's been made. Now we have a protocol where every dog on intake gets this combination of parasiticides.
Fantastic. And any more questions that we got for Dr. Whetstone, he shared his email. You can email those directly to him, or we'll send those to him after the webinar. And as he mentioned, because we're only limited to an hour today, we weren't able to provide an in-depth discussion around external parasites, such as fleas and ticks. So for that reason, we've asked Dr. Whetstone to join us again for a part 2, where we'll talk more about external parasite trends and challenges facing the shelter environment. So stay tuned for future announcements on a part 2. All right, next we are going to pass it back to Tabitha. She's going to talk to us about money-saving strategies that are helping our members save big.
Thank you, Mariah. So we know a thing or two about saving shelters and rescues money. We saved our members a total of $1.4 million in 2020. Almost $250,000 of that was savings on parasiticides alone. The rest of the savings dollars were on food and treats, pharmaceuticals, cleaning supplies, medical and surgical products, office supplies, and crates and kennels. Now I'm going to share a few of the strategies we use to help our members save money. Tip number 1 is to shop by active ingredient and compare savings. It's very easy to get in the habit of ordering a specific product that you've always ordered. Instead of ordering by product names you're familiar with, consider searching by active ingredient. This way, you'll find alternatives to the brands you might be familiar with and at a considerable cost savings. For example, take a look at these 3 product comparisons. You might be buying Interceptor, but did you know that Milbahart has the same exact active ingredient, milbamycin, at a 42% savings per dose? Or maybe you buy HeartGuard, but you can be buying VetraShield Max at a 25% savings per dose. Again, it's the same active ingredient, ivermectin. Synergy's active ingredient is selamectin, the exact same as Revolution, but you could save a whopping 61% per dose. These products do the exact same thing. However, by searching by the active ingredient, you're able to save a lot of money. Every Shelters United member has a member consultant they can work with to compare products and find the product that works best within their budget. Tip number 2 is to buy your products from a distributor. Buying from a distributor gives you access to thousands of manufacturer products all in one online marketplace, easy online ordering with one convenient bill, next day delivery in most areas, a nationwide distribution network, and a high efficiency order fulfillment, weekly specials for extra savings, and better than retail pricing. We work with MWI as our distributor partner. They're a large veterinary distributor with a catalog of 50,000 products and same or next day shipping. And tip number 3 is to join the only animal welfare group purchasing organization if you haven't already. Shelters United members leveled up their savings and saved an average of $1,857 in 2020. Retail pricing through online retailers gives you no discount. When you open an account with MWI, you get the largest distributor network with 50,000 products and 22 warehouses across the country offering same or next day shipping and tons of everyday low prices. But now, level up again and add Shelters United group discounts to save even more money. A few examples of the discounts that Shelters United members have access to are 15% off most Virbac products, including parasiticides, 15% off the entire Blue Natural Veterinary Diet line, and a free 12-can case of Blue GI wet dog food with your first purchase, 5% off rescue disinfectants, 50% off Association for Animal Welfare Advancement's new membership, or 25% off membership renewal. Our team is always sourcing new partnerships to increase our group's buying power for deeper discounts and new products. These are the type of special offers you will receive as a member of our group purchasing organization. Our partners at Virbac are launching a brand new product, and you're some of the first people to hear about it. This new product, Milbahart, as we mentioned, is an alternative to Interceptor. Again, same active ingredient at a lot less cost. And on top of the everyday low price, we also have a special rebate offer coming up soon. Virbac is working quickly to get this product launched out to MWI, so stay tuned for an email from us with the offer details coming in the next couple of weeks. If you're already a member, make sure you've connected with your member consultant, who can, number one, help you maximize your savings by comparing products and pricing. Share your savings statement every 6 months so you can see firsthand how much you're saving your organization. And look out for a savings statement coming your way in July. We check in with you periodically to see how you're doing and also to share promos and special offers. If you have specific questions on treatments or products, our member consultants can provide detailers that you can take to your veterinarian. The more members we enroll, the more negotiating power we have to bring you new products, promotions, and exclusive offers from our partners. If you know of an organization that could benefit from extra savings, please refer them to our website or drop their name and email in the chat. And there's another member perk. Consultants are available to do a savings analysis and put these tips to work for you. So we've surpassed 950 members, and we are rapidly approaching 1,000. If you're interested in joining the Shelters United family and receiving the awesome benefits we mentioned today, reach out to me, the enrollment specialist for Shelters United. I will explain the program benefits and provide you a custom pricing quote so you can estimate how much we can help you save on the products you already buy, and help you set up an MWI distributor account so you can buy all of your supplies in a one-stop shop. Shelters United is free to join with no minimum purchase requirements. There are no monthly spend amounts and no contracts to commit to. And after you join, we'll be able to provide you with a custom savings analysis.
Thank you, Tabitha. Really great tips there. I hope that helps all of our members. And we do have time for one more question, it looks like. So we're going to ask a question to Dr. Whetstone. We have an attendee that's wondering about chemical-free alternatives for fleas. Would you recommend this approach?
Well, let me just say this. I'm very much a Western medicine veterinarian. Believe in science, believe in the research. You know, I'm not aware of any proven, you know, non-chemical, if you want to say chemical, non-drug, you know, approach. I want to see research. I want to see that it's proven. And that's been done. I mean, with any of the either FDA or you know, parasiticides that have been approved for use, the research has been done both from an efficacy and from a safety standpoint. And I think, you know, once we've proven safety, then I think efficacy is huge, right? And to prove efficacy that reaches a number that we can all be confident in, and that just hasn't been done. I know there's a lot of other, you know, remedies, solutions that you know, are always proposed, but I'm not aware of any that have any research, so I can't recommend that. I think we've got to stick to the science. I think we've got to stick to the research that's been done, what's been approved, and what's been proven to be effective.
Great. Yeah, we can appreciate that perspective. Thank you. One more question we're going to take here. Are there states where certain types of flea control ingredients are becoming immune to a specific type of ingredient? In the Southeast, certain preventatives don't seem to work as well.
Yeah, and there is some data to say that some of the compounds aren't as effective as they've been in the past. Definitely there will be genetic mutations where the fleas have developed resistance to those. And so those are flea populations. That doesn't mean that, you know, if let's just say a particular state, you know, if we say the Southeast, let's just say Florida, does that mean every flea in Florida is you know, immune to a particular, you know, compound? The answer to that's going to be no, but there very well may be populations of fleas, and that population could be in a house. And that's typically what we're talking about is within a house, maybe within you know, a neighborhood, so to speak, where a dog might go outside and pick up fleas and bring them from another yard or another home. Yeah, that definitely appears to be the case, that some of that is happening. But it's not white, you know, it's not, again, 100%, and it is not, you know, even in particular areas, not across the board would every dog be immune to that. But definitely something we want to pay attention to.
Great question. Okay,
Yeah.
good. All right, guys. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating. We appreciate you for joining the discussion today, and thank you to our speakers for sharing your wisdom with us. As a reminder, we're going to be sharing the recording of today's webinar this Friday, so keep an eye out for the replay link, and you'll be able to access it at any time to review this awesome content. We hope it's been helpful for you. And you'll have the opportunity to share what you learned and how we can make future webinars more impactful for you. So please take a minute as you exit to answer just a few brief questions about the webinar. Thank you guys for taking your time. We appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.